Today on the Seth Norris Show, we sat down with Sean Barows of the University of Tennessee Athletics Media Relations Department. He is the Associate Director, and he works with the baseball team and the football team. Sean takes us behind the scenes of the life of someone in the Media Relations Department, as well as tells us how fun it was to win that national championship. Enjoy.
What's it like? Obviously you weren't out there on the field with them, but being a part of something, being a part of a national championship run and, just kind of going along with the team on that.
Yeah, it was awesome. It's kind of hard to put into words, honestly. It's kind of sunken in now. Like, it took a while to sink in. Like, in the moment, you're just like, it's kind of like, wow, I can't believe this actually happened. Because, like, obviously I've been doing this for over 10 years now between, working at USF before I came here to Tennessee. And, like, I've been blessed to work with some successful and good teams and programs. But, like, it's so, when you get into it, you realize how hard it is to actually, win a national title. Obviously only one team does it every year. So, like, just getting there is always, like, awesome. Like, I remember in 2021 when we just got there, like, it felt like, like we were on top of the world, and, like, it was the greatest feeling ever. And then, last year we win a game finally, and it's like, all right, we're kind of moving in the right direction. And then this year, like, you win the whole thing, and it's just like, I don't know, it's really fulfilling. Like, all the hard work you kind of put in, you kind of feel like it's definitely worth it. Because this job, I mean, just like anything else, like, can get overwhelming at times, and I'm away from my family a lot, and especially during baseball season. So, like, just like, finishing out number one and winning the whole thing was like, it was an awesome experience. And, like, obviously it made everything feel like it was all the hard work paid off. And really, for me, it was just seeing, like, the joy in all the players' faces and the coaches who, I mean, they're the ones who put in, like, all the work and, like, the long days and hours, and, like, they're the ones out there on the field, like you said, doing it. And just to see them, like, experience that, like, it's a once in a lifetime thing, and something I definitely won't ever take for granted. That's for sure.
I imagine that's probably one of the better parts about your job. People think media relations, they just think, press releases, things like that. But what's it like in the position you have to be able to build these connections with all these different athletes and coaches?
Yeah, that's definitely my favorite part of the job, for sure. I think most people in the profession, if you ask them that question, they'd probably say, oh, you get a lot of that same answer, especially now with the way things are changing so much. And, like, it's just a lot of it's kind of like one headache after another at times, it seems like. But, the constant is, like, you have to be able to, like, build relationships with the people you're working with. And seeing them, like, a lot of these guys come in as freshmen and, like, kind of just develop as not only players but people, and, like, playing a small part in that, like, it's definitely fulfilling for sure. And, like, like, saying thank you to me afterwards, like, I'm like, I didn't really do anything, man. Like, I feel like I'm just doing, like, a normal job, but, like, it's really cool to just to see that come full circle. And, like, obviously it's cool, and of course someone's calling me.
Your media relations.
I know. But, like, yeah, just that it's such a cool, like, thing, like, be able to, like, say that, yeah, like, I saw this kid as a freshman come in. It's just like you're a kid, like, and now he's, a national champion, and, like, you see him go off the pro ball, and, like, it's just so cool to watch that journey, like, each step they take. And, like I said, just playing a small part in that is, like, super fulfilling, and, like, really kind of makes all the hard stuff worth it, like all the long hours and, the busy work, like the notes and all that other stuff you're doing. Like, it kind of it makes that much easier to, like, stomach, and much more fulfilling at the end of the day.
And, obviously you see that growth, but I'm curious, as in with your role in media relations, you see some of these guys come in as freshmen, and then there's a mic stuck in their face.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't know what to do with it, and then by the time they're on the way out of here, they're a seasoned professional.
Yeah.
I guess, as someone on the media relations team, what role do you all actually have in that?
Yeah, we do, obviously, like, media training for these guys, and nowadays it's honestly easier than when I first started. Like, these guys are so used to it now, or a lot of them are. I shouldn't say everybody, but, like, it's, recruiting's such a big thing now that, these kids, especially with football, because I work with football too, like, like most of these big time recruits are used to it, and baseball's kind of gotten to that same point where like these kids aren't as like, you know, shocked by it, or it's not like just this thing they've never done. So it's become a little easier in that regard in terms of that. But it's definitely something that we work on, especially like during the fall. Like I'll try to do, you know, sometimes we'll try to do like mock press conferences with some of the new guys just to like try to get them comfortable in front of like people asking questions. And the cool thing is too, we have a great like media beat here that covers the team, and I've, you know, had the pleasure of working with a lot of them since I've started doing baseball here. So we've developed really good relationships. So like I'm able to work with them, and they're able to work with me to help these guys too. Like they're also vested in like making sure these guys are like, you know, getting better at that, because obviously it helps them in their jobs too. So like it's a really good relationship that we've been able to like build, you know, between the coaches and the players and our media and myself, and just kind of like making sure these guys are, you know, ready for that stuff. And then it's only going to help them, you know, at the next level, obviously, for the ones who are fortunate enough to go play professionally. That's a big part of it. And I always try to tell, you know, the ones that maybe aren't as comfortable with it or don't like doing it, like, hey, I get it, but at the same time, like, you got to think, you know, this is good. Don't think of it as like a burden or like something that you just have to do. Look at it as like an opportunity, like to build your personal brand. Like professional teams, like watch this stuff, like, you know, to see how you do in these type of environments. So the more you do it, it's like anything that you do, like the more reps you have at something, the better you're going to get at, the more comfortable you're going to get at it. And like some guys are obviously naturally more gifted and comfortable with it than others. That's just kind of how it goes with anything. But you can definitely like get someone more. It's honestly, for me, it's more so about confidence than anything. You know, just having confidence, you know, up there in what you're saying and that kind of thing. So the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to get, and the more confident you're obviously going to get. So there's definitely been some guys who, yeah, come in as freshmen and like they're really kind of deer in the headlights kind of look, and then by the time they leave here, like, you know, it's like nothing. It's just another thing for them. So it's cool being able to help them, you know, along with that process and making sure they're ready for like their next step of their lives, whether that's pro ball or even just like a job interview. A job interview, honestly, like that's, you know, something you're going to have to go through. And if you're not comfortable in those type of environments, it can make things difficult on you. So I think just using those as opportunities, seeing them as opportunities more so than like, oh, this is something I have to do, really kind of helps, you know, change the mindset and the attitude for a lot of those guys.
Has there been one player, whether it's football or baseball, that comes to mind that maybe you've seen, like you're a little surprised at how well they've done since your first time, you know, seeing them do something like this?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. I don't really want to name them.
Okay, yeah.
There are a few that come to mind for sure. And like I said, usually like your best guys are always going to be the ones who kind of come in more polished and like they're just comfortable. Usually it's guys with the personality too. Like that's just kind of how they are. They like being in front of the camera. They like being the center of attention. So it's usually the guys who are more introverted who you have to work with more and get them out of their shell. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of times it's like honestly more so just them getting comfortable in their environment in college or with the program too. Because you got to think these kids come in as freshmen, like they're used to being the guy, but like then they'll come in here and it's like, oh, they're just another guy. Right. They're a small fish in a big pond now. So it's like them just getting comfortable in their environment with the team first is super important, and then you can kind of build from there. It's hard to like throw someone like right into the fire if they're kind of just like they're trying to figure everything else out. They're trying to figure out college. They're trying to figure out, you know, how they fit into the locker room. You know, not being the guy. Like, how do I like just go about like kind of fitting in general? So you got to factor that stuff in too. But yeah, there's definitely a couple guys that, you know, come to mind for sure. But you know, it's just part of the process, and you know, I'm happy to be able to help those guys out for sure.
How, you know, since you started to now, has the role of a media relations team kind of changed since, you know, from 10, 12 years ago to now?
Yeah, it's definitely changed. It's constantly evolving. I'd say definitely, I mean, social media was obviously a thing when I first started, but it was kind of still in like the early stages of getting like super big. So like that's definitely like become number one priority in a lot of ways, especially for these coaches and like recruiting wise. Like that's like obviously recruiting is like the number one thing. Like how do we help recruit, like in recruiting? That's like the main goal for a lot of it. So that's become like huge, obviously. Just you see like every department, not just us, across the country is like you'll see more graphics, more videos, just social media presence is massive, brand building. It's not so much anymore like writing press releases, and like that's still part of it, obviously. But you know, where we're reaching the most people in terms of fans and recruits is like on social media. So like that's like the number one kind of priority in a lot of ways, which is a good and a bad thing. I think personally, like there's obviously I think there's a lot of positives that can come from social media. Obviously, I think the negatives it's easier to like look at the negatives for sure. And I have to remind myself sometimes too, like, hey, like you see a lot of the bad things, but there's a lot of positive that comes from it too. So that's definitely where I think it's changed the most, is just constantly like we're trying to be, on the cutting edge, or like, of how we're doing things socially, and like, how we're reaching our fans and engaging with them and engaging with recruits, and, creatively, how are we helping our teams. And it's something that we're always looking into improving, and how can we be different? But that's the difference. Like, how can you be different? Because everyone's kind of doing the same stuff now. But like, how can you separate yourself from everyone else that's doing the same thing? So we're blessed here to have like obviously a pretty big department, and we have a social media creative department of like 10 people between like graphic designers and everything else, and then our separate video department. So we have a lot of people here that help me do that. Like, I'm honestly just the one hitting post most of the time, so I don't like to take a whole lot of credit for that. We have some super talented people that are pumping out those graphics you see, and like the videos and everything else. So whereas at some smaller schools, like I always really respect those people, those SIDs, because like coming from USF, which is like obviously not Power 5, but it's not like a small tiny school either. Like they have a decent amount of resources, but even from there to here, like the amount of resources that we have that are at our disposal, like it makes our job so much easier. So those people are doing everything on their own, taking their own photos, like editing videos, making graphics, like, and that's a lot, man. And it's I respect those people a lot, and I don't think the normal fan knows, like they just see that stuff posted and like, oh, that's awesome. Like they don't know like all the work that goes into that. Like a minute video we post, like hours of editing go into that. Like It's not like something that just like happens like that. So it's the behind the scenes is pretty wild, that most people have no idea how much work goes into that stuff.
What are some of the things that maybe someone doesn't realize with someone in your position, maybe with what the hectic schedule and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, people probably just think like, oh, you get to go to games for free and like this kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, it's cool, but like at the same time, like I'm there. So for an average baseball game, like I'm there like 3 hours before the game starts, getting everything, make sure everything's ready to go. And then for the entire game, I would say 2.5 to 3.5 hours. And I'm there like post game, probably anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, depending on how long post game takes, and like getting everything posted to the website. And so like it's a lot of time, man. Like, and it can be tough, like personally, like with your family life. Like I have a wife and 2 young daughters, so like finding a way to like balance that time, especially during baseball season when we're playing 4 to 5 games a week, like it takes its toll for sure. So you got to really be able to like, turn it off when you're home. It's something I've really had to focus on, like the last year or 2, especially. Like, hey, when I'm like home, like I'm home, like I'm trying not to work, like, and obviously there's times where like that's not possible, like you have to do some stuff, but like especially during the season, like finding time for myself to spend time with my kids and my wife, my family, like it's been super important. And I think a lot of people in this industry get burned out because they struggle to find that work-life balance, especially now when it's like these sports seem like they don't end. Like the seasons end technically, but like they don't really ever end. Like it's like there's recruiting and the draft and like fall ball, and for football there's spring football, and like it's never really, it's 24/7 365. So it's like just the hours you're putting in is crazy, and you really have to be able to like I said, find a good balance where you don't drive yourself crazy, honestly. But yeah, that and like trying to think of like what stuff people don't know. Maybe like I don't know. I think it's just a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that goes into like putting on an event, and that's not just us. Like that's like every department that touches a game. Like people just show up and like, oh, the game happens. Like there's so much that goes into like the video board and like pre-game stuff and like all the like football, all the stuff in between, plays or TV timeouts, like, and then event people and like it's crazy the amount of stuff like when a game gets canceled or fans are like, oh, why don't we just cancel this game or like move it up an hour? Like there's so many moving pieces that have to go into that in terms of like staffing an event and like, do we have people to like can the radio and TV do that? Like
TV's
there's
good,
so many
yeah.
moving pieces. The camera people who are filming the game or shooting the game, like so many moving pieces go into that, and I don't think normal fans get that. It's just like they have like a one-track mind of like, oh, like let's just do it this way or like. And it's just that's not how things work. Back in the day, before all the craziness of TV and everything, maybe, but nowadays, like there's so many things that go into like putting an event on at the level that we do it that like it's gotten crazy. So I think people probably don't really realize that.
Yeah, and I imagine it's got to be, this is all probably a good time when you're at an organization where the sports are good.
Yeah, for sure.
I imagine it can get kind of taxing a little bit if you're, maybe at a bad spot.
Oh, it is. Like, it's crazy. Like, you want to be good, obviously, because it makes things more fun, but it also creates more work.
Yeah.
Being, like, mediocre is honestly, from a work standpoint, easier for people in my position, but, like, it's also not as enjoyable because, like, nobody wants to be part. Because when you're losing, people are not in good moods, so it makes your job harder in that respect. But again, like, obviously I work with football and baseball, like I said, so like both teams being good right now, I don't really have much of a downtime.
Right.
Like baseball season ended end of June, and then we went right into guys are at summer ball, and then the draft. So like for me, baseball season kind of just ended after the draft, and then SEC Media Days was last week or 2 weeks ago, and now fall camp for football starts this week. So like I haven't really had any time off, which can be like tough. Like honestly, like trying to find time to just kind of relax and recharge the batteries.
Yeah.
But that's kind of also the price that comes with working with elite programs that are, doing well at the highest level. So it's there's some give and take there for sure. And again, that's where it comes in. Like we have a big department here of people who are awesome that willing to help. Like take some of the load off. Like I don't really do anything for football in the spring. Like our head football person and then like our other football people who help like take all that off my plate so I can focus on baseball, which is awesome. So like I'm super blessed to be at a place like Tennessee that has the resources and the capabilities to like divvy up all that work where we're not getting behind or I'm not super overwhelmed, which is nice.
Is there a big difference in how you all approach things with baseball as opposed to football?
Yeah, I mean, football is just different in every regard, in every sport, just because it's such a beast, right? Like, that is the sport here in Tennessee and for most major colleges. Like, it's driving all the revenue. Like, it has the most fans. It requires the most work. It's one of the biggest roster sizes, right? So you're dealing with, 120 players and then coaching staff as opposed to baseball, which is, 30, 40 players and coaching staff. So, and then you have smaller sports, even like basketball and stuff. But like, so it just takes more effort for more people. So we have 4 full-timers who basically their primary sport in the fall in some way or form is football. So whereas baseball, it's just me. And like I have student help and like that kind of stuff, but we don't have like a true like number 2 or number 3 person helping with baseball stuff. So like even though there's way more games and stuff like that, it's just like obviously football is the whole week-long build up to one game, but like there's so much that goes, there's so much media attention that like mapping out, weekly media schedule every week and, which players are going to talk and like dealing with stuff that comes up in terms of like, whether it's on the field or off the field stuff that we have to deal with injuries, like just like the media, like is such a different animal and the fans want all the information right now. So like, it's like a constant barrage of just like stuff coming up. So it just takes like it really takes a village of people to like really effectively like do our jobs for a sport that big at a place like Tennessee, where like it is the show in town. Like that's all people care about in the fall, like football, football, football. So whereas baseball, it is crazy that I'll say that baseball where it was when I started, which my first year doing baseball here was 2018, which was Coach Vitello's first season.
Yeah.
And like media didn't care, like fans didn't care, and now
I know I didn't. Yeah.
I mean, and now like Tony is like the most popular person in Knoxville. Like the guy can't go out without being like hounded by people.
By everybody. Used to it would have been just like dudes, but now it's now it's everybody.
And like the amount of like interview and media and just appearance requests that I get for him is on a weekly basis is like you'd be amazed by it. And like the like in terms of like I can't like fit all the media who want to cover the team. I can't grant them all requests every game. Like I just can't. I don't have space for them. So like for me, it's kind of like learning how to tell people no politely was something I had to do. Like, how do I manage like all these people wanting to cover like games, and so it's definitely a delicate balance and like something I've had to learn to do more, which is not the fair part of my job, honestly. I'll be honest about that. But it kind of is what it is. Hopefully next year with our new press box, bigger press box, it'll help me out though. Finally get a new press box, which I'm pumped about.
Well, happy for you. Does having somebody like Tony, is that a personality like that, someone that popular, does that make your job easier or harder?
It depends on the day.
Yeah.
I'll say about Tony is he's great. As you know, and everyone knows, with the media, he is amazing. Like, the media love him because he's honest, he's real, he's not fake like a lot of coaches you'll see. He's going to tell you what he's feeling, and he's not going to sugarcoat things, which is great. And sometimes it can cause headaches for me. Mm-hmm. But he's actually come a long way, too. And I think he would probably tell you this if you asked him, like, because he was first head coaching job, so he had never had to do it. So he had to learn a lot as well. And, like, so in the way how quickly things, like, exploded here, like, that had to be crazy for him just figuring out how to manage and navigate all that. And, so it's definitely something that, like, I think it's great overall because obviously we want all the, publicity and, like, all the positive momentum with our program we can get. But it's definitely a challenge in terms of, like, again, like, kind of, like, reining some of it in and figuring out, how do we do the most but, like, not overextend ourselves, especially him. Like, he's such a busy guy. Like, now, like, he just can't do all the stuff he was doing his first few years here when he was trying to build interest in the program. So, like, getting people and media to understand that, like, has been a bit of a challenge because, like, he would do anything, like, his first couple years here. Like, he was just trying to get the program out there and whatever. And he's a guy, like, he hates saying no to people. Like, he wants to try to, help everybody out. So sometimes I got to step in and be the bad guy there and, like, hey, sorry, we can't do this. Like, so that's been is difficult. And obviously, like, our 2022 team was so polarizing that there was some, obviously, I think overall it was great for college baseball. Like, it got people interested in watching, whether you loved us or hate us, like, you're watching, right? And people are watching college baseball now. So, but there were definitely some challenges that came with that season from my regard. Because we're trying to keep things, flatlined and positive and, like, and so you can't always do that. Like, so there's stuff that comes up where you have to, handle, crisis management type stuff, which it's just part of the job. But I would rather have it this way than have, like, nobody caring, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Well, last question. I'll let you get out of here. How do you handle, which maybe it's just you're doing a great job and we just don't know about them, but how it doesn't seem like there's been many crisis situations recently anyway. So, how do you all, as a media relations department, just handle something like that?
Yeah, obviously it's a team effort, and it's very collaborative with each coaching staff and, like, individuals who are involved in whatever it may be. But, like, honesty is like literally honestly is always the best. It sounds cliche, but it's the best way to go about things. Like when you try to start covering stuff up or lie about stuff, it only gets worse. Especially here, like again, I'll go back to the media market here. Like it's so big and like people do a great job. Like you're not going to be able to hide things. Like you just can't.
Right.
So, I think personally, you got to get everyone on the same page, trying to, with the same message, and getting out in front of things is obviously always helpful. Like when you're reactionary instead of proactive, it just makes things that much harder. So being proactive is the key in those situations for sure. And again, like baseball-wise, we really haven't had a whole lot, which it says a lot about Tony and his staff and the culture they've created there. They're very player coach friendly, and like they let the players like dictate a lot of things and like run themselves. But like the players understand like that is a or like a privilege they have earned, and if they abuse that privilege, like the coaches will step in and like quickly to correct things. So like they've done an amazing job of creating just a culture where the players police themselves, and like you're expected to act like a professional. We're going to treat you like professionals, but you're expected to act like a professional. And if you're not doing those things, then there's consequences. So them managing themselves that way obviously makes my life a lot easier, because you don't see a whole lot of issues that ever get to the level like where they get out of the clubhouse or anything like that. So I think having a culture in place where players can police themselves and like make sure like guys are doing what they're supposed to be doing really is like a huge thing that most people probably like overlook, because they just see the results on the field. But like that stuff behind the scenes, like that's what makes championship programs.
Yeah. Last questions. You got to go. As someone in your spot, how excited are you for the next few years, and what's going on at the University of Tennessee?
I mean, obviously you can't not be excited with the way, the whole athletic department and university, like direction it's moving. I think it's awesome to have like a chancellor and Chancellor Plowman and athletic director and Danny White, who are so like lock in step with each other about what they want and how they're just like the cohesion is so good that it makes it easy to be successful. Like, and obviously I think with baseball specifically, I think Tony has built like a monster here, and they're not slowing down anytime soon. Like the recruiting's on a whole nother level. Obviously the stadium renovations are happening, which are long overdue. So, and then with our other sports, obviously football's on the rise and going in the right direction with Coach Heupel, and has been for a few years now, and the excitement's like higher than it's been in a long time, obviously. So I think, just seeing, how we kind of build off this national title we just got, because we were kind of just waiting for the first team to get there, right? Like we've been close in a lot of different sports, it seems like recently. So I was like, all right, who's the first team that's going to do it? That's going to like, break through that glass ceiling. Yeah. And then I feel like now, like someone's done it, like you're going to see a lot more of it. Like Coach said and Danny White said after we won the national title in baseball, like this is the first of many. Like this is just the beginning. So I really do believe that, and like everyone in this athletic department believes that, and that's a major part of the battle, is making sure everyone really believes that. Because if you don't, it's one thing to say it, but when you see it actually happen and like the results actually, like the process will lead to the results you want, like it makes people that were maybe on the fence or like kind of like iffy about it, they're like, all right, I'm all in now. Like this is legit. Like this works. So I think that's a big part of it for sure.
And that was Sean Barows with the University of Tennessee Athletics Media Relations Department. We'll see you next time.